Today I am cooking Cajun stew chicken, and we're gonna start off in the ingredients aisle. The seasoning is the most important part to cooking a lot of Cajun meals, and it's something that we call the Trinity. Okay, I'm a New Orleans cook, first of all, so I cook Cajun, but also it's New Orleans twist and twang to it too. So let's start off with the seasoning. The first thing I want to get is a nice bell pepper. Bell peppers are one of the most important parts of any Cajun, Creole, New Orleans cooking. And I mostly always go with the organic vegetables. So here I have one large bell pepper. Alright, the next thing that come with the Trinity is that we always use shallot. Shallot is one of the most biggest parts of the meal. It's one of the seasons. It's green onions, but we call it shallots. You gotta excuse me, my mask is acting up. But shallots is one of the most important parts. So we got a bell pepper, and we have 2 bundles of green onion. Next, we head around. Remember, totally organic. We head around and comes celery. Celery is part of the Trinity also. I like the leafy celery because it adds extra flavor. Some people like the short celery. That's the short celery. It's without the leaves. It's just the start. But the leaf I use as a garnish a lot of times in meals. So I also get the leaf celery. See the sticks? The sticks are $3.99. The leaf celery is $2.99. And the reason being, it took a knife and just cut the leaves off. So that's my reason for using that particular kind of celery. Alright, so we have a bell pepper, celery with the green leaves on it, and we have shallots, which is green onions. Next, I need some minced garlic. Usually I use fresh garlic like this. So today I think I will use fresh garlic, not the mince. I have garlic already at home, so I'm not going to worry about the garlic. So seasoning going to consist of fresh garlic, bell pepper, shallots, which is green onions, and celery with the green leaves on it. The next thing we're going to use is chicken broth. Chicken broth is I mostly use to deglaze with. You're going to see the process when I start cooking the hen. So what's on the menu today, if I didn't mention it, was Creole stew Cajun hen. So it's Creole and it's Cajun. It's both. And it's New Orleans. It's a little flavor from the South. So let's call it Louisiana. Yeah, Louisiana stew hen. Oh, Scar. Come on, shit. All right, here we go. I got my chicken broth. I like chicken broth that's low in sodium. So I have my chicken broth because I pick low in sodium because we're going to have so much seasoning from other stuff that you don't want anything with too much sodium in it because you may oversalt your food. So here we go, chicken broth. Now we're in the meat department. And when picking a hen, or even a chicken, what you're looking for is something organic and something, because when you grow organic, it usually has less fat, because when it's not organic, it's fed a lot of grain, which leads to a lot of fat. So check your hen and make sure what you're getting is organically grown, so it can be low in fat. And plus, we defat the hen before we cook it. So that's 2 things that we do when it comes down to cooking. It's that you got to watch the fat content even from the beginning. And not just that, it makes a better gravy when it doesn't have as much fat. That foam that you see on top of the water as you cooking a stew or gravy comes from the fat that's within the meat, coagulating with the fat that you use to cook. So always get organically grown if you can. If not, spend a little time defatting it. Okay, this is what the vegetables look like when it's diced and ready to be used. Now, I must tell you, I don't really mince vegetables in my seasoning when it's going into a stew. The reason being is that stew generally cooks between an hour to 2 hours and 20 minutes, depends on what you're cooking. So your seasoning, basically by the time you deglaze it in the pan and marinate it down and then add it to the gravy, the cooking process is going to be so long that you're not really going to see the seasoning. So I leave mine kind of hearty so that you can see a little of the seasoning in the gravy, because if I cut it too fine, it's just going to be like non-existent. You get a little flavor, but you won't get the same, presentation. Another thing that I do when I cook is this. You have to keep disinfectant wipes and you have to keep counter cleaner. I usually use 2 different cutting surfaces, one for meat and one for vegetables. I don't use the same knife to cut meat as I do to cut vegetables. You may ask me why. It's because of cross-contamination from E. coli. You just don't do it. You know what I mean? You don't want to get sick. So a lot of people, they do the cooking shows, but they don't really tell you about the proper way to prepare food. Another thing, when I season my chicken, I like my chicken at just about room temperature. Hens, chicken, whatever kind of meat you're doing. Not really cold to where it have ice on it, and not hot to where it's starting to marinate. Reason being is that when you add these seasonings to your meat, just like the pores on your body, it's more apt if the room temperature to be open to receive the seasoning. But if you take and it's cold, it's going to be hard, and the pores are going to be closed on the meat, and it's not going to take the seasoning as well. And the seasoning's going to ride on top, and it's going to come out in the frying process, and it's going to come out in the gravy, and hardly none of it is going to be sunk really into the meat. And that goes especially true when you're using meat with skin on it, because the skin is already a barrier you have to get through to get to the meat. So remember, when you're cooking, have your stuff defrosted totally. Let it get close to room temperature before you season it. All right, this is the pan. What you want to do is use a little vegetable oil, just enough to glaze the bottom of the pan, just enough to cover it. Because we're not trying to fry the hen, we're trying to sear the hen. So we want to have a little stick in here. We don't want it to the point to where it's frying. We want the bottom of the pan coated so it don't burn, but we don't want so much cooking oil that it's floating in oil, because that's not searing. At that point, it's frying, and we don't want to fry. So this is what the chicken's going to go into. This is the pot, this 2-pot that's being used afterward. So with that being said, it's time for the chicken. Well, the hen. Now come the searing process. We have the hen, and it's seasoned, well seasoned. And here we go. You hear that sound? That sound means it's ready. And you want to put enough chicken in to where it coats the bottom of the pan, but not so much that it's directly catching each other and stopping the searing process on the meat. So here we go. This is the searing process. And you want to get this hen to where it's kind of brown and sticking to the pan as it's cooking. And the reason being is because when you sear a meat, you're sealing a flavor in. That's the secret to cooking a good stew hen. A lot of people don't know that, but it's the searing process. It's one of the biggest parts of the cooking process. So, and searing means high heat. It just means high heat to close up the skin, the meat, to hold the flavor and the juices in while cooking. Okay, we're back. This is a little of the grease that's left and see all that that's stuck on the bottom of the pan? That's really what we want to get for the deglazing and for the flavor. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to add all these vegetables to that and deglaze the bottom of the pan. Alright, this is what it's starting to look like. It's starting to marinate and you're brown with the seasoning in it. And the finished product is going to be when it's cooked down and deglazed some and the vegetables start getting a little clear. So what's going to happen now is I'm going to add a little bit more of the vegetable oil. Has to go in, just a little bit. And this is going to be before the roux. Just a touch, not much. I'm going to save a little bit of that. Alright, here we go. See that? See that deglazing? See that flavor that's coming out from under the bottom of the pan? See all that? I want all of that to get caught up in the vegetables. And all of that is going to be the flavor that's going to be in there. So that's what we do. We take and we deglaze. And we pull all that up. And see the color of that? Look at that. I can make a chicken and sausage gumbo just from this. Just from this, what you see right here is a base for a chicken and sausage gumbo without a roux, believe it or not. Just with the seasoning, the celery, the onions, the bell peppers, and the deglazing of the pan is what I can take and use for chicken and sausage gumbo. But today we're not doing that. We're doing the Cajun Creole stew, hen stew. All right, these vegetables are almost ready. Check it out. See the color? See the texture? See that? That's what you want right there. You want that texture. See that deglazing of the pan? See all that came up? Then cooked off into the vegetables. And that's a lot of the flavor right there, chef. That's what's happening. I mean, that's what you call good, yeah. But that's the secret. That's what Louisiana and Cajun and Creole cooks through the years learn to do, which makes the food so much different than the other places when they cook it. There's a lot of little things like that. So now, what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to start my roux. And the way I make my roux is tricky. You have to know how to do it, and it's not easy. So pay close attention. I have the mixture of the vegetables with the oil, and I have already a slight coloration from the deglazing of the pan. Alright, so what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to let that cook like that. I'm going to add light flour to this. See that? This is what I call a pick-me-up. Because what this is doing is combining the flavor of the seasoning into the gravy. A lot of times people do roux and they do it totally separate, which I'm going to have separate roux too. But that little flour I'm putting with these vegetables is combining the taste. In the cooking process, in the searing process, it's combining all that together. So now what I'm going to do in a separate pan, I'm going to do a roux. And then I'm going to add these vegetables again to that dark brown roux, and that's going to be the basis of my gravy. Now, to this pan that has the seasoning, it has a little bit of the flour mixed in with a little bit. All right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and now use my chicken broth in this pan with the seasoning. So, here we go. Here we go with the chicken broth. Oh yeah, listen to that shit. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I mean, ain't that something? That's just, whew, that sounds good. Oh, that's music. Oh, yes, yeah, that is music. Look at that. Man, look at that. Just look at that. Don't you want some? It ain't even finished yet, man. It's just knowing what it's gonna be when they get there. Now, here's another little secret. I never add my parsley flakes too early to the gravy or to the roux. Right now, I add a little bit. Now, I want you to notice something. Now, I want you to notice the color of this before I even use my darkened roux to darken up the color some more. Let me show you how easy it is to make a chicken and sausage gumbo out of this if you wanted to. So remember that if you just want to do a chicken and sausage gumbo. Look at this. This is just that. Look at that. Look at that. That's a nice Creole gravy. Look at it. Perfect. And that's just chicken broth and the drippings and the deglazing process. Yes. Now we go all the way down to low heat. The secret with this is you always have to watch your heat. There's no such thing as leaving this alone. There is no leaving a roux alone. Any kind of roux, even with all this chicken broth in it, there's no such thing as leaving it alone. A roux will stick and ruin your dish in a minute. I mean, it'll ruin it. So it's better safe than sorry. Now this is the chicken broth mixed in with all the seasoning and the deglazing from this pan. This pan right here, this is for the darkening of the process of the roux to get the color and the texture that I want in the end result of the gravy. So I add my flour. All right. Then I start to stir to see if I got the right amount. Really is no right or wrong amount when it comes down to making a roux, to be honest with you, because you actually can make a dry roux. And a dry roux is cooked without any flour. I mean, without any oil. It's just flour. And it's tricky to make a dry roux because it will stick and it will give you that taste, that scorchness, and it will burn easy. But once you learn how to make a roux, any kind of roux, you'll feel better. So here it is, and you can see this roux is kicking already because I had the pan super hot. And the reason being is because I don't want to spend all day making a roux. But the key is, if you're a beginner and you never made a roux, try not to use the high heat as much because you will mess up. But once you do it for so many years and watch grandpa do it and watch grandma do it and watch mama do it, watch daddy do it, then you kind of know how to stir a roux. Because if not, I'm going to tell you, if you think it's easy and you go on high heat, I guarantee you this, your gravy will have specks. I tried it before when I was younger, I wanted to go in the kitchen and I wanted to make my roux and I wanted to make it just like them. And my grandpa said, hey boy, look, don't you go in there and cut the thing all the way up. Cut it on low and work slow. I said, but you don't do yours like that. He said, well, do it your way. I went in there, I cut it all the way up. I dropped my flour in there, and I was trying to cut up seasoning at the same time and talk and do this and do that. And I come back, and it was kind of sticking, so I hurry up and stirred it. I said, oh, it ain't that bad. So I come back later. About no more, there couldn't have been no more than 2 minutes. It was sticking some more, so I stirred it some more. Kick part about it, it was the last flour in the house, right? And everybody was waiting to eat this dish that I was supposed to be cooking. So I couldn't throw it away. So what I did was, I sat there and I said, oh, it's going to be all right. It's just kind of dark. But when I got ready to make my gravy, and that roux hit the water and started making gravy, it had little black specks all in the gravy. Because once flour burns, it turns into something that will not dissolve. And those black specks, no matter how long I cooked that gravy, would not come out that gravy. So I learned a valuable lesson from my grandpa that day. take it slow and easy. So, you know, growing up in Louisiana, growing up listening to this article, growing up fishing, you know, cooking turtles, cooking ducks, you know, you kind of like, you love the land. It's not just the food, it's everything. It's the culture of Louisiana. I mean, that's what makes it what it is. You got people from New Orleans, you got people from the Bayou, you got people from all over. It's like, but we all a melting pot to make the New Orleans area what it is. Because the Bayou and the Cajuns and the Creole really is all together. Look at that. I gotta keep track. I can't get to talking. I'd be doing the same thing I did with my grandpa. So, and with that being said, in that culture, you have to adapt, and you have to learn how to do things. You have to learn how to be independent. You have to learn these things. And with that comes tradition. You know, you get together, you do dishes like this, right? You listen to Zydeco, like what's on the radio right now. And it's times that you remember, you know, and that's what we do. So, let me finish this roux and I'll be back with you. Okay, this is my roux at the end. This is the color I'm shooting for, a dark peanut butter color. And this is the side roux that's going to combine them together on the side right here. You don't have to do it, but I recommend that you do it because it's going to bring out so much flavor in the food. And now what I do is I add a dash of Tony Satcherin's, a dash of onion powder, a dash of garlic powder, and a dash, just a dash of cayenne pepper, and a touch of black pepper, and a light sprinkle of salt. I do that right at the end so my roux can have the seasoned flavor in it also. You know, because if I do the roux and I don't add nothing to it, it's just flour. And I want every part of everything that's going into this dish to have flavor. And the way I do that is to incorporate the flavor from stage to stage. If I don't incorporate the flavor from stage to stage, something's not going to get left out in the wash. So now comes when we start combining. This is our seared hen that's in the pot that's just waiting to be smothered, to be stewed. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this first, which is the seasoning, the chicken broth, and the light roux, and add it to here. And then I'm going to put in this roux in sections. Reason being is because I want a certain texture to my gravy. And if I combine all of this, it may be too thick, it may be too watery. So I have to, as I cook it, to see how I want this to be. You know what I mean? Because in Louisiana, yeah, we cook by recipe, but the majority of it is by taste. Because that's the way we was taught. So that's why it's so hard to emulate into recipe and to do Louisiana cooking if you're not from Louisiana. You could try it, just pick up recipes, but it's in our subtle differences that, like what I'm doing right now, that makes the dish. So here we go. This is the first part. Oh, you hear that? Oh, just lovely, man. Oh my God, look at that. Oh, it should be a sin. It should be a sin. Oof. Look at that, man. Oh, my. Look at that. Oh, look at that. And she ain't ready yet. She not close to ready. This have to cook for 2 hours. Yes, 2 hours. So now, what's left now is to add a cup and a half of water to this. Then add about a quarter of a cup of roux to that and let it cook until I see the thickness that I want. Then seasoning the taste. All right, I added my water and I'm adding this dark roux that's on the side. That's going to thicken this. Give it the color I want. There's ways you can get around it because we use I know people that use kitchen bouquet if they can't exactly make a roux that they want. But I look at it as almost cheating. You know what I mean? So I don't use kitchen bouquet. My kitchen bouquet is this right here. That's my kitchen bouquet. Now it's simmering. So once it gets to this point and you stir, you want it to simmer like this for about an hour and a half, an hour 45 minutes, and then it should be ready. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cover and we're gonna simmer, and I'll be back with you with the end product. These are the seasonings that I use when I'm cooking this particular dish. I use garlic powder, garlic salt, black pepper, salt, Satiran, Creole seasoning, cayenne pepper, and parsley. I use these sparingly. I use them because it gives the food flavor, but you try to stay away from the salt as much as you can. So make sure you get garlic powder and onion powder, not garlic salt and onion salt, because time you put the rest of the seasoning in, you're going to be over salt your food, and it's too much sodium. Now we are back, and we been letting it cook down. So it's been cooking down for about 2 hours, a little over 2 hours. And as you can see, some of the meat is falling off the bone. You see the color of the gravy? You see the meat? That's what you're looking for when you do a stew. Just that texture and that color. That's what we're looking for. Now this is your end result. Man, you talking about good. Look at that. You got the chicken falling off the bone. Look at the texture of the meat. Look at it. It's just falling off the bone. The gravy is just utterly perfect. And you got rice. Now you have French bread. And the French bread I do is with 3 cheese and a little bit of garlic. And it's a real good meal. So I think you enjoy it. And this is what it has been, y'all. This is Louisiana style Creole with a bit of Cajun, all New Orleans hen stew.